Hello there, welcome back to the final video of the week. It's a double bill of Brain Dead and The Artifice Girl. Now, Brain Dead is in this beautiful box from 101 Films. I'm not sure you can get these anymore. I got this a while ago. You get a nice booklet, and you get the film written by Adam Simon. Artifice Girl has just been released this year, and so this is like 30 years difference between these two films. They still kind of cover some similar ground. And this one's directed by Franklin Rich, and it just got a release, and it was shot. Both films were shot at a very low budget, and this one just came out of nowhere. Like, I heard about it from a few reviews, and I just thought I'll check it. I'll try and remind myself to look out for this. And then it came out on streaming and was fairly cheap when I got it. And so I got it, and I think it's in Freeview. I'm not quite sure if it's in Freeview or not. You have to check. So if you don't mind watching the adverts every so often, it's available there. Both these are well worth seeing. Both these are flawed science fiction horror films, but they're different types of horror. Like in Brain Dead, it's psychological horror, madness, and fear. And then The Artifice Girl, it's social horror. It's this fear of like pedophiles and things like that. It's a different type of horror. And it's fear of technology as well. Both of the science fiction things look at technology and different uses of technology. So I'll start with Brain Dead. Brain Dead is very influenced by David Cronenberg, especially Videodrome. It was written in the 60s. So this is like the script of this was written like 60 years ago. And basically by Charles Beaumont, who was this science fiction horror author, wrote The Twilight Zone and wrote a lot of the Roger Corman Poe films. He's a very well-regarded writer, very well-respected writer. He died very early in his life. He had a wasting disease that made him age very quickly. And it's based on one of the scripts he wrote for Corman called Paranoia, which was not made at the time. And then years later, when they were sorting, the interns looking through old scripts, someone found this one that was typed up in the 60s and photocopied, and they said this one's worth looking at. And because Corman already owned it, they looked at it and realized you could actually do some of this film if you rewrote it for modern times. So they brought in Adam Simon, who was making his name as a director at the time, and they let him rewrite it while talking to the estate of the original author, and then he got a low budget to direct it. Now, Adam Simon at the time was actually doing a lot of work with Tim Robbins' theatre company, so a lot of Tim Robbins' theatre troupe were in this film, and Robbins apparently going to be in it as well, but he got Jacob's Ladder, which is funny that you got Jacob's Ladder, because Jacob's Ladder and this film are very similar. Like, they're mindfuck films. But instead of Bill Pullman, who's actually better casting for this part, he's actually just works better. He's more of a sense of humor, and his kind of goofy everyman persona really works in this film, because Pullman's one of those weird actors who can play comedy, he can play straight, he can do in between. He's one of those like, underrated actors who got stuck in a rut for a while as the guy who never got the girl in certain films, and being the kind of guy who is just the square. And then after Independence Day, he kind of got other better parts, and he did Lost Highway, which is a terrific film by David Lynch. So he's one of those underrated actors. Another film he made called Zero Effect you should see, because that's really excellent. That was Jake Kasdan's first film, when he was basically playing Sherlock Holmes, a modern Sherlock Holmes. So Pullman's actually a very interesting, underrated actor. He's like better known for Spaceballs and Independence Day, which are far less interesting than some of his more unique films like Brain Dead. Bill Paxton, who often is confused with Bill Pullman because their names are very similar, was also in this film. He was one of the guys who started off with Corman, and apparently he's a big proponent of this film. He wanted to play the lead, but he was wrong for the lead at the time, even though later on in his career, he probably played it fine. It's just like at the time he was known as Hudson, basically from Aliens. So he kind of played this guy who was a total dick, and he was enjoying himself so much in this film. And it's just so much fun to watch him playing this guy who's just awful. But he's manipulating people all the time, and he's just this guy who's out for himself and will do whatever he wants. So basically the plot is Pullman plays this guy who's interested in brains, and he wants to experiment on them, and he's got all these different brains, people die in different ways, and try to work at the motor functions and try and work out what makes a person. Is it the brain? The brain, the thing that connects to the rest of your body. It's the most important thing, is what makes a person, and he's really fascinated by this. So he's not really interested in commercial applications. He's much more interested in getting grants and trying to figure things out and be a more pure scientist, which is tough for him because it's not the most fun job. So Bill Paxton comes because he's an old friend of his, and he asks him to come and see this guy called Halsey, who is a guy who killed his wife and family as well, played by Bud Cort from Howard and Maude. And they're trying to figure out, he has this process that he has that's stuck in his head, and it's like trying to get it out of him. And this guy's very eccentric, he's in a madhouse, and it's like, how do we get this information out? He doesn't even recognize who he is anymore. And during this time, the corporate interests are there via Bill Paxton. Even I'm getting confused, Paxton Pullman in this video. And essentially, it's like the situation just starts to wind out of control as Pullman actually finds a cure for the guy and actually solves his brain issue, but then starts to go mad himself and starts seeing someone who was described by the mad person, Bud Cort's mad character earlier on. And now he's seen him. And then the film gets even crazier as it starts to jump between realities of what the mind sees and what the mind's making up itself, and what is mental breakdown, what's paranoia, and what's physically breaking down, what's mentally breaking down. And yet we can't tell what's reality, what's fiction, and all that stuff. All very Videodrome, which is a good thing because there's not enough films influenced by Videodrome. It's not as good as Videodrome, but this is still a very enjoyable film. It's got some really cool ideas, like Paxton actually wants to make the brain technique a form of plastic surgery. Instead of sorting your body, you can sort your mind. And he wants to exploit all the things Pullman's been doing to actually change people's minds and just do it as a thing to sell to them. Like, we can change your way of thinking if you want to change it. And you've got all that kind of crass commercialism versus this kind of internal terror of someone who's trying to make sense of their own thoughts as the thoughts start to get paranoid and crazy, and they're not quite sure if they're the person they think they are, or if they're someone different. And, you know, Pullman thinks he's his original character, or is he Halsey himself, or is he something else? And it jumps like crazy through these different scenarios, and it's not always coherent, or by the end it's very, very, very incoherent. It makes sense at the end, but I don't think you needed to. It's like, it gives you an explanation, but it's like you could have cut the explanation off and left people even more confused, and you'd probably been better off. I mean, the explanation is less interesting than the actual all the stuff that's going on. I'd rather not have an explanation. But the film is very enjoyable. It's funny as well. It's like this thing of it's a comedy who's aware of it's a B movie horror, and everyone involved in the film knows what film they're in, but they also know that's part of the charm of the film because it's a B movie horror sci-fi thing. They can get away with a lot of weird character acting choices. They can get away with being eccentric. They can get away with being funny in inappropriate situations. It's like everything that is the things that are a problem low budget can also be a solution to other things that you can do in a big budget film. Where this film is far more worthwhile than Dial of Destiny, because this film can do whatever the hell it wants. Or Dial of Destiny couldn't. This film can do whatever it wants and has a lot of fun with it. And it's very enjoyable. And it just really works. It just is. It works because it is a low budget film. If it's a big budget film with some of these narrative choices, you'd be like, oh, this is a bit too much. But in the low budget extreme, it really works because they can just go crazy with it. And Corman was apparently really confused with the film when he saw it, because it was a Roger Corman production, and he had to bring in Carl Franklin, the director of Bill Paxton's best movie, One False Move, to come in and say, no, it's fine. It's totally fine. This film is fine. And I think Kat Shear, who did Poison Ivy, was the same. She was brought in as well. And they're like, no, this film's really good. Leave it as it is. It's weird, but it's good. And the film was released to cinemas by Corman for very, very, very limited run, but it started out as a cult thing that followed, and it's become a cult film. It's one of those weird films that people enjoy because it is so strange. And it is incoherent, but it's incoherent in a fun way where there's a bit of cheek of just how dreamlike the logic of the whole thing is, because it is part of a brain going wrong. And your dream is your dreams are subconscious hitting your conscious mind as you sleep. And that takes that logic within what feels like a waking mind and creates this weird trauma for the guy as he tries to work out what's going wrong. And Pillman has a lot of fun playing this character in these different circumstances and getting more and more paranoid. And it's like, this is definitely his his audition or his warm up for Lost Highway. It definitely is. Although this is a lot funnier than Lost Highway, but it's definitely tapping into that same kind of paranoia and disquiet that you would really turn up the ramp on in Lost Highway. So yeah, this is a really enjoyable film. Very much worthwhile. Now we're going to Artifice Girl, which stars another member of the Aliens group, Lance Henriksen, but he's only in it for 20 minutes at the end. So you go to the film expecting Lance Henriksen in the full film, you'll be disappointed. Well, this film is low-budget sci-fi talk fest, really. That's the best way to describe it. Mostly talk. So Franklin Rich, the director, also plays one of the leads. And he plays this guy who, at the start of the film, has been questioned by two characters played by Cinder Nichols and David Gerard, who are kind of accusing him of suggesting he's a paedophile, which he takes great offense at, because they work for an organization that tracks down pedophiles. But of course, this film is very influenced by Mamet and wordplay and meanings that don't mean what you finish to think it means. So it is very, very influenced by Mamet. To a fault, though. The first section is too talky. And there's fat there that can be cut. And sometimes you feel them falling into Mamet fanboyisms at time. And sometimes the acting's a bit rough because they're trying too hard to be like a Mamet production. So that's kind of the issue in the early part, even though it's still very enjoyable. And it keeps twisting itself till you get to the point of where the rest of the film is going, because the film is cut into 3 parts, and the end of each section sets up the next third of the film. So it's getting to the end of the first section, and then the first section, that's when you get to the information that will take you to the second section, which same thing happens in the second to the third section. Well, there's a problem that has to be fixed, and the problem is all to do with artificiality and AI. Basically, so the story is basically about this artificial girl who has been created by one of the characters who is being used to track down pedophiles online. And the film looks at that first as, this is the character saying, we need to do this. This is a great tool for us to catch these perverts and stop them. And then as the AI starts to develop over the decades, it's what's our responsibility to this AI, which is developing its own personality, who at the start was a algorithm that created scenarios that would fool the people involved to reveal themselves and to incriminate themselves so that information goes to the police and they can be arrested. And because artificial intelligence looks like a little girl, and at the start people think actually it's a little girl, and turns out it's not. It's a computer program that can move, use technology to hide its status as a computer program. But then as the film goes on, it's about the program developing and actually find itself tainted by its initial programming. Its initial programming is the thing that's going to make it feel miserable, is because it can't move on from this initial programming, which is a moral crusade against pedophiles, which is something never going to end because of human nature. But this artificial girl cannot move on from that. Just the same way as the characters who created the situation are trapped by their different pasts and their traumas and what happened to them. So it's the idea is they're all kind of trapped, and who's the one who's actually going to step beyond that kind of internal programming? Will it be the artificial intelligence, or will it be humans? And the film was about the kind of development of the characters, or the evolution or devolution of certain characters, and how slow it is, and how like trauma can actually take someone a lifetime to really face like clearly and realize some of their actions were insane, done for the best of reasons, but also people are prone to manipulation, prone to delusions of what the things are doing, what they're doing, what things they do mean, and the dark side of their own nature, and not facing up to the actual reality of what they're doing. And the artificial AI characters dealing with that, and so initially she's the predator, but she becomes sort of the prey of the ideology and the emotional damage of these characters, and it's like, how will she manage to move on from this kind of traumatic situation this life form has found itself in? And it's like, how does this life form evolve over time? How does it evolve into something that can create its own meaning? And how does it evolve into something that can live outside this initial meaning? So there's lots of interesting things going on in the film. It is flawed, though. I mean, it is a low-budget film. Some of the acting is a bit rough because it was made for not much money, and you can tell there's very few sets. Each set is there for about a third of the film, and they're all rooms. The first one's a blank room. The second one's a small office space. The third one is a house, but they're all kind of limited in location. Now, Tatum Matthews plays Cherry, who's the artificial girl, who's the character who evolves through time. And this is the best performance in the film. She's really good. A young actress who understands what she's doing, understands how to portray this character who's slowly evolving. It's one of those performances where she seems more mature than her years type of performance. And the fortunate thing is, she makes all the other actors look, weak in comparison. Because the director of it is one of the main performers, and he's quite good because the characters are limited to certain things. And obviously he's working on the film as well as his own performance. The other two actors were a bit over the top in the first section, but they get better as they go along. But it is a bit talky at times and a bit obvious in dialogue at times. And again, it's one of those things that it could have lost little bits here or there, but not much, just a little bit of the David mannerisms. It's just at the end, the finale does feel a bit obvious. It feels like we're going to interesting places about artificial intelligence, where it's going, what its potential is, and then you pull it back to fully be about trauma rather than have that be one of the different metaphors and one of the different difficulties this being's going to face. And it feels too packed at the end after it suggests a lot more going on than it delivers at its finale, which is one of the flaws of the film. It just feels like it could have just done a bit more at the end to make it more complicated and a bit raggedy. Now, they ended up bringing Lance Henriksen as an older version of one of the characters. and he's terrific. He's like the one actor who can stand up to the young lead and actually match her beat for beat. So he's great in it, but you feel you don't see enough of him though. That's a kind of problem. But it's good to see him given a good part and be able to really run at it. But the Artifice Girl is definitely worth seeing. There's lots of really cool things in this film. Both these films are those kind of things. It's even though they're flaws, you'll watch them happily again because there's enough really interesting stuff going on, enough ambition going on. There's enough like genuineness to filmmaking that goes above its flaws. Like both these films are genuine films. They're made by directors who want to make this film. They're not trying to make, just make money off it. They want to make something that's personal to them. Even though that Brain Dead started off as a different script from 30 years before, but it had a personal touch. So both these films are definitely worth seeing. I would highly recommend them both. And that's me. I hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you enjoyed all the videos. I'll see you all later. Right, bye.